And the same thing goes with credit. I know you know what your score is. I know you were 30 days late before. I know you know that you have a 620 and the 620 is not exactly perfect. I know you know that, but you need to know I know it.
So that's when I get back to Palmer's software, right? Because he got all that bullshit out of the way right up front. Because that's what they did. They desk you the very first deal. See what you give me, run your credit. Okay, here are the cars that you qualify for.
Right.
Sure. Let's go take a look. And he ranked ordered them from the top gross to the lowest gross. That makes all the sense in the world. The other way is a game.
LeaseLink did that. Lease Profit did that.
Why wouldn't you?
But way back.
Welcome to the Old Guys No Shit podcast in Dealercast Studios, where we bring together decades of automotive knowledge, all together in one place. Here's your host, Old Guys Who Know Shit.
Hey, what's going on, Dealercast Nation? I am Jason Harris.
And I'm Rob Mudd.
And I'm Larry Bruce.
And this is the Old Guys That Know Shit podcast.
Yep.
What's up, old guys?
I'm not an old guy, though. I'm officially now not an old guy.
So somebody asked me, because, people are watching this and listening to this. They're like, how do I become an old guy?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm like, well, have we defined what an old guy is yet?
I don't think we've defined it, but we got a super secret decoder ring, right?
That's right, we do.
We need one of those.
Special handshake.
Yeah.
We were practicing that just before we recorded. We're getting it down. It's kind of a slap, turn around.
It's work in progress
shake your
right now.
left leg.
Yeah.
What does designate old?
What does? Like, is it? What is it? Years in the business? Is it like what qualifies us to be old guys?
A duration of time doing the same shit
over and over and
over and over again. That's it. What that duration is.
It might be how you feel after an NADA. What's your recovery time?
Oh, there you go.
What's your recovery time after NADA?
What's your recovery time?
If it's anything less than 2 days, you are not an old guy.
I was going to say receding hairline, but
I got in that game a long time ago. Then. I mean, I don't think that counts.
For a long time.
Yeah, I've been older than I thought.
Yeah.
2 days after recovery.
At least,
man.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's when you can say, "Hey, I remember when."
Yeah.
And then whatever you can finish in that blank.
No one else does.
Or like, if you remember double-digit interest rates in the automotive space, then I think you're technically an old guy.
Yeah, you are.
Wow.
If you remember when Ford introduced 9.99, which actually wasn't that long ago, to be totally honest with you guys.
Bad, yeah.
What was it, 98?
Yeah, it had to be
something in that range.
90s.
Yeah, 208 was 0, right?
Yeah.
That's when it started that.
Yeah. Right? Like, yeah, okay, I'll even give you that. If you can remember when 0 became a thing, all right, then I think you can call yourself an old guy.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay, I remember that. It lasted a long time, too, 0 pedestrian.
Yeah. Probably comes back again soon.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely coming back soon. All right, guys. Hey, today's episode is, do we really need an F&I box? Just the fact we call it a box probably means we don't need it. But
Well, it depends on who you hire to do the whole thing, I suppose.
Okay, the reason this conversation started is because the manufacturer surveys that are coming out right now, almost across the board, no matter what dealership, no matter what manufacturer you are, all right, the one thing that customers are complaining about at the highest level is this process that we are executing where we put them through an F&I box. Now, we may not actually call it a box, even though I was just at a dealership recently and I did cringe. I had one of those cringe moments because I think the salesperson kind of cringed a little bit because he didn't realize what he said until after he said it. All right, great, guys. Congratulations. That's great. The next thing we're going to do is just going to have to wait till Chris is done, and then we'll get you guys in the box, and we'll get you on the road. And
here we go.
Did I just fucking say that out loud? Did I tell him we're sticking them in a box?
And then once you beat your way out of it, then you can...
Yeah, once you beat your way out of it, we are. But I mean, I think it is a pretty shitty situation too. I mean, it is considered a box. I mean,
you need to go back to the genesis of how it started.
Okay, well, let's start there.
Right.
Okay.
So Jim Moran, and Pat.
Oh no, you're thinking of Carl Singer and Pat Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Pat
Singer-
Ryan was in Jim
Yeah.
Moran. They're out of Chicago, both of them.
Yeah.
They started it. They
Well,
brought
Carl
the
Singer,
F&I.
He was Singer and Pat. It was Singer.
Singer,
and Pat
Singer.
Ryan.
That's the
It was
earliest
called
I
Singer
remember
and Pat Ryan. It wasn't Moran.
Wasn't it?
Moran was in.
He
Moran-
worked at the Tofo Chevrolet with at the same time, and then he went to. So
I don't think it
I
was
know
Jim
it was
Moran,
a-
but I'm pretty sure it was Carl Singer. I mean, we know
Now
Pat
we're
Ryan.
old
was-
Pat Ryan.
arguing.
Yeah. So what did they do? They went and said, "Hey, let's create our own little box or bank office in the dealership."
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you're getting back to the the late '50s, right?
Yeah, the genesis
Yeah,
of
the
it.
genesis of F&I
Right.
in general.
Right.
They just went to the dealership and said, "Hey, look, we'll finance your cars. We'll do it all here. You don't pay anything." And they sold their life A&H and warranties and
Because they wanted the deal. Everybody
wanted-
walked.
right.
Everyone would have walked.
Right.
Because they got to go get a check.
right.
Yep.
And then they'd come back or
Right.
not come back or go
Yeah, so
somewhere
they started
else.
selling finance the car instead of going and writing a check, or instead of going down to your local bank and getting the money.
Yep.
They were doing it in the dealership, and then finally the dealership picks it up. Yeah, I mean, you get to that genesis. I think that I am being an ex F&I guy, and I spent a lot of time in F&I, and I think every dealer, if you're on the desk, you need to go through F&I. F&I's got to be your first stop into management, right? In my opinion. I'm not a fan of this cradle to grave thing. I don't really believe the manufacturers are getting that feedback. I think they're asking the question the right way.
Well, it's the number one complaint across the board. In fact, I mean, there are other companies out there that have also shown this. The worst experience inside of a car dealership right now is
in
F&I
the
office.
Well, they
but is
set it up
because
that
it's
way.
the
It's set up
yeah,
that
they
way.
said, but is it because it's the F&I office, or is it because of the guy in the F&I office?
Well, I think it's the whole bloody process. I mean, if
you
you think
spend
about it,
4 hours with a guy telling him everything
Sure.
you know from your first birth to whatever your situation in life is.
Right.
And you feel like the guy's on your side and you're going to do a car deal, and then he tells you, oh, by the way, you got to go talk to this guy over here.
Yeah, but that happens in a house.
Huh?
I spend all my time with the realtor. She got to get my whole thing done with the realtor, all my paperwork done with the realtor. But then I got to go to the title office. I got to go to the title clerk.
No, but the title clerk's not selling me $15,000 more worth of
yeah,
stuff.
but they're making, and they are. They get
a piece, they get a point.
They very well may not be selling you,
But they get a piece of the
put,
action.
they put stuff in your loan. You got all that's title work, all the title searches and guarantees and all that other nonsense in there, and it's all stuff you have to do. But at the end of the day, it's the person taking care of the paperwork. When it started to become a problem, I believe, is when we stopped calling it the business office and we started calling it the
Finance.
F&I office, the finance office.
I don't necessarily disagree
But
with that.
there was
And-
also
and I was
legalities
never- I was-
to that.
But I was
because
never the
you
finance
had to-
guy. I was the business manager.
But you had to take a test to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, you had to be licensed, right? And so
No, you didn't. Yeah, I didn't have to be
didn't?
licensed. I did have to go to Carlson. I put myself.
Some states,
Yeah,
you do.
You don't. Texas,
Canada,
you don't
have
need
to.
that,
Okay,
right?
all right.
But I put myself through Carl Singer Finance School. My deal with Carol Smith at the time when I left Ron Kraft Chevrolet and went to go to Timmers to become the F&I manager is I would sell for 2 months. And then I would pay for my own finance school if he would put me in the box, right, or in finance. And so I went to Carl Singer Finance School in Dallas, and I paid for my Carl Singer Finance School. I remember it was $751, and it seemed like every dollar in the world to me. I put myself through it. I came back and I started doing finance, and from there, but I was taught by Jim Ziegler that it was never the finance guy. It was always
The business
manager. And
You know-
I didn't wear the same things the guys wore. I wore a suit.
So
and a
when I
tie
got
every day.
it was my senior year in college, and spring semester and getting ready to graduate, and my first job interview was with Pat Ryan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go to F&I school, and so they run you through the interview ringer, right? And I had like 4 interviews, spent the weekends down at car dealerships, and then they called me up to the final interview up in Minneapolis, is where the region office was. And you get up there, and I didn't get the job. They didn't. And, the excuse was I didn't have any up experience. I hadn't taken any ups. And I was pissed because I'm like, hey, man, I told you when I started this interview process, I'm just now graduating from college.
Right.
This is my first job opportunity. And so I got blown out by him.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Well,
That's my F&I story.
Huh. Yeah. Well,
I was an F&I manager for
Yeah.
8 years, and I understood completely the disconnect in the experience. Right, as a consumer, here I did negotiated a deal to a payment, just to find out that I had actually not negotiated the deal. All right, and there was a whole nother set of negotiations that had to happen afterwards. So, look, I, as an F&I manager, injected myself into the sale way early. I would try to spend at least the least amount of time in my office as humanly possible, and would spend as much as I possibly could of watching people doing deals, going out, introduce myself incredibly early on, so I could try to eliminate some of that as much as possible. And if I could get at least one product in before they even negotiated, I knew I had a much higher probability of talking about other products and other solutions and stuff.
Oddly enough, when I started at Timbers, and I have to take some negative, or I'm going to have to take some criticism for this, but I had a lot of power because I'm running some pretty good numbers, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So the desk was not allowed to quote a payment at all.
Whoa,
They
wow.
negotiated price and price only. If you quoted a payment, I ripped you a new one.
So they hadn't been introduced to the Foursquare.
No.
It sounds like they never were.
They didn't. They were not allowed to. Now, eventually that went away in my F&I career.
Sure.
I did have to have that payment thing, and that was always. It always came down to, the if you're going to negotiate payments, there had to be this range. There had to be a level of ambiguity to this, because they don't have the final, right?
You're the last
We're in this ballpark, and I can see there's no doubt today that would cause a real problem, right? Because at this point you're look, I can pull up my phone and calculate the payments on this thing.
Sure.
Right. We're
Wasn't
not
that
guessing
difficult.
right now.
No.
Okay. This is, so, and the only thing it comes down to now at that point is it comes down to, can you, what is your credit going to,
Sure.
going to support this rate
Right.
and this payment and the way this goes down, right?
Yeah.
And that's the worst experience you can ever get as a customer, that you negotiated something just to find out that was not actually the case. So that was one thing I was actually really good at with as an F&I manager, was to identify people pretty quickly by body language, the way they were leaning into it, if they were confident in that. And I would stop some people in the cell and say, hey, should we maybe take a look at the financing before we make a decision on a vehicle today? And you'd be amazed how many people said, I'd actually like to do that
makes sense.
first.
So I remember Promax software, John Palmer.
Yeah.
He
Still a good product today.
It is a hell of a ride.
Still-
And it makes so much sense to land somebody first on a car that they can buy instead of wasting all your
It's
time.
the worst experience in the world to come in and say, hey, everyone's got big eyeballs. You come in, my kids even, I want the 32-ounce steak. Honey, you ain't going to finish the 32-ounce steak. Okay? But I want it. I know you do. But you ain't finishing that thing, right? So let's settle on the sirloin, But yeah, I think too often we just kind of feed into just, we want it all. Like the last vehicle I just leased 3 days ago, all right, was a 24-month lease. So this was pretty simplistic. Okay, it's a 24-month lease. All right, I had an amazing experience leading up to the dealership, talking to the managers, having a conversation, coming in, vehicle was ready, my wife was able to do what she wanted to do, then she decided to go shopping, I decided to sit around and finish. They let me craft as much of the experience as I wanted until I came to the F&I office. I had to wait 2.5 hours at this dealership just to speak to the F&I manager. Now, what really set me off on this whole situation is the manager lied to me. And he actually knew I was in the automotive space, so that was even worse, right? He had the audacity to tell me legally I was required to meet with this individual. And I'm like, Oh, boy. Now, if he had just come out and said, hey, look, I got a boss, and he's got this ridiculous process that has to be followed every single time, and I apologize that we have like 3 other people waiting around to talk to this person, that would have been one thing, right? I would have been, well, that's the truth. That's the truth, right? Like, your boss has a process that he's not bending on whatsoever, and everybody has to go, through this. But the fact he came out and lied to me, oh, man. So they took this amazing experience, and just because they had to follow a process defined by the boss, totally destroyed the whole fucking thing. Just absolutely destroyed the entire experience. I said, now I was in there for not an hour and a half. I was now there for 4.5 hours on a 24-month lease, guys. Like,
Well,
My nephew sells Lexuses down in Dallas at Park Place, and he takes it all the way to the end, start to finish.
Yeah, my sales guys did too.
He does a great job. Now, the kid's smart as hell too. Got a finance degree from Iowa, and
There you go.
With like 3.8 grade point average, so he has the capability to do it. But I would think that it'd be challenging. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not, but to find someone that can take it all the way to the end. Probably
it's
have
a
to
different. It's a higher caliber salesperson. So now you're talking about a higher amount of comp, and that there's
but it's
nothing
probably
wrong with-
less. It's even the pay plan is probably better for the house this way than it was the old way.
No.
You think? So?
Well,
I think
is it a higher level caliber someone, or is it just more training
More training.
that
Well,
the
I mean, but
dealership's
that's
unwilling to do?
But that they've got to be willing to take that training, continue that training, and get good at that craft, right? And see, what's always the challenge with this, right, is that there's really two sales. There always are, right? And so I'm battling it out here as a salesperson to get the car sold and get a deal closed.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then I've got to transition into, now I got to sell
the
again. No, I don't know if someone says payment. I got to go
Well,
sell
I mean, you
a
gotta sell-
warranty.
yeah.
I got to go sell Gap. I got to go sell all these other finance projects. All I really wanted to do was get the car sold. As a salesperson, I got the car sold.
The problem is that is the way our pay plans were structured. Now, I actually worked at a dealership where my very first dealership I worked at is that I actually got paid on F&I products. A smaller percentage than the gross of the car, but it was still a reasonable percentage. I think sometimes it was 15, even upwards of 20% on the product itself. So, well, that was just extra money on the table. I wasn't going to leave this on the table. So I talked to them about service plans. I'm like, okay, well, you're going to service this vehicle no matter what. I don't even know why we don't talk about these things. It's not like you're buying the car and not going to do a fucking oil change on it. You're going to service the car, right? Let's talk about that now. And then, look, you're financing this thing for 72 months, so you're clearly expecting to keep ownership of this past the manufacturer's warranty.
Or it's the
Why can't
payment
we
I
have
can
that
only
conversation?
way I can afford the car right now.
See, I would get them to take a lower trim level so that they could have the service plan in it. They could have that extra protection because they swore to me up and down, we're financing for 72 months, we're keeping the car for 72 months, and those customers were happy as hell. But I took that on my own. No one trained me how to do that. I don't see why we can't train salespeople to do this.
You can. It's not a matter of can you train salespeople to do it. That's got nothing to do with it. There's a psychological end to that car sale when you finally get that customer to say yes, I'll buy it.
But as a manager, I'd rather negotiate a deal with a full gross opportunity. I mean, look, if I'm negotiating just the vehicle, and guys, come on today, the gross of vehicles are shitty as hell, right? Yep. All right, I'm negotiating a deal on a car that's got $900 in gross in it, all right? But if I can negotiate a deal that's now got $5,000 in gross, I got some room to move around.
But you don't. Okay, so you've got. You're selling the car, and the car. Let's say the car's got a $900 margin, right? Or $900 between invoice and wherever you end up.
Selling gross,
gross, right? Whatever you want to call it, right? You got that $900, right? Once you're done getting that $900, there is for a salesperson, because you haven't got the customer to buy. I still have to get them to like, know, and trust me, want to buy from the dealership. Be okay with the car. Be okay now with the price or the payment that I've got them to. Once they say yes, and I've got the car sold, I promise you there is a psychological end to the deal where the salesperson goes, okay, now they got to and so then they got to restart, and they've got to start selling on a warranty now, and of course now here, keep in mind this hasn't ended yet, right? Because there's also a psychological end once the customer signs the buyer's order. I'm agreeing to buy it for this. This is the price. This is what I'm getting for my trade. There's a psychological end for them, right? If you don't have that psychological end for the sale, particularly for the customer, right? And then you turn around and start introducing warranties and other stuff, you know what's going to happen, right? Yeah, I'll take that if you can make it into the price of my payment now.
Of course, they end up just discounting the damn thing anyways.
Right. So what ends up every time, it's like anything else. If I ever took, we would put accessories on the car.
Huge amount of accessories. I've done so many accessories.
But then they always end up being discounted in the price of the car.
That's because we sell it afterwards, not before.
But you got to sell it. But you got to sell the car first and be done.
I sell the car holistically as everything.
Right. But what I'm saying is that if you don't have the car deal done and you try to introduce the running boards, they will become a part of the car.
I will say, if I introduce the running boards and they're already saying, here's the thing, I get them to say yes to a $695 running board. Guess what? They've already said yes to the $45,000 truck.
And the psychology of it is...
But that's assuming they've already said yes.
Well, I got them to say yes to the accessories. By saying yes to these accessories, they've already said yes to the truck.
I think
you're in this the particular situation, you're backwards. You're selling the running boards before the car.
Exactly.
I'm not selling
I'm selling the running boards with the car.
Right, but but I'm talking about what I'm talking about is
you're talking about a process.
I'm talking about it's not just the process.
It is,
there is a mental process to this.
The mental process, so that you're describing, is one for you, because the customer doesn't know that there's going to be two sales. They hope there's just one. And so when you get done with you're done, and then they move on. But if you have one guy, they're selling the sales one time, right?
Yes.
That's how I see
it's
it.
a holistic
Because
purchase.
it's from the same person.
But I don't.
And you can disagree.
I can tell you right now, I've seen it happen. Now, are more people being more successful today selling product afterwards? I think so.
I don't know.
A to Z's doing okay.
Well, I would say their salaries are saying no, right? Like when we first started getting in the business, a good chunk of the sales team made $250,000 a year. All right, a good chunk of the F&I managers made $250,000 a year. Like, dude, find me a dealership right now where any salesperson or any F&I manager is making $250,000 a year. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's rare. It's not what it was.
They don't have a BDC department.
Get yourself an AI agent.
Right. No, I would say that the reason you're not seeing many F&I managers making $250,000 a year is those F&I managers, they're not trained anymore the way they need to be.
Could be. I definitely think that's an aspect of it.
And they are F&I managers. I mean,
paper pushers.
If in a store I have today, if I had a store today, you'd be the business manager. You'd be wearing a suit. You'd be wearing a tie. You're the banker.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Period. You're the banker. And that's one part, and that part of it if you just changing that little bit of mindset changes the sale process. But the mental ownership of the car ended when I signed the buyer's order and said, yes, I'm going to buy it for that amount of money to the customer, right? Well, and now nothing else gets mashed into the price with it. We have one end, we're picking up another part. I bought the car. Now I'm buying how I pay for it and what my ownership experience is going to look like.
You bought what you thought was going to be the payment.
But the customer I bought the car. I agreed with this guy on that piece of paper that I was going to buy it for that amount of money. As far as they're concerned, they bought.
Right, and that's when they get pissed when they get in the box and they realize.
That's because that's in the way you present.
Absolutely,
it goes back to the training.
Absolutely.
If you go in and say, well, now everything that guy just told you is bullshit. Now let me tell you what it's really going to be. Yeah, they're going to be pissed.
I don't think anybody's going to say that. I'm not.
They're not going to be that. They're not going to be that explicit.
No.
But I mean, when you sit down, if you're an F&I manager is not sitting down first of all and having a credit counseling meeting with the customer, they're going through all of their credit.
Well, I mean, I think if a dealership at a minimum is not giving you a range in the payment, it's not okay, right? Because credit fluctuates, in any huge way.
Right.
You can't.
I'm assuming there already is a range, but I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go through the credit counseling with the customer. If there's anything on this credit,
but I'm just questioning how much credit counseling is actually required these days. Back a look. When I started in 1999, all right. It wasn't easy for me just to go find out what my credit score was. Like I couldn't just go like, "Hey, Experian,
I get 3 emails a day from Equifax and Experian saying, "Hey, you want to see what you're..."
Dude, seriously, I know. I mean, like, I literally, for me to find out what my credit is right now would take less than 5 seconds.
Right. See, and that's and now that's the perfect thing. You're making the point, right? It's not for you to know. I know you know. What I need you to know is I know. It's like I just went over this with a guy. I was shocked on LinkedIn about the trade, and we were talking. He was talking about acquiring vehicles and it's like, well, what do you do when you do the walk around of the trade? What do you mean?
Yes.
He doesn't do it.
I mean, this guy's a 10-year general manager. Right?
I find that hard to believe.
It would shock the hell out of me.
Well,
we can go find the LinkedIn post where I go, you don't walk around the trade?
It's full belly syndrome.
Yeah, right.
You see this. You see major processes get forgotten.
It gets worse. So I'm talking about you walk around the trade, and I'm telling him why you do all this. This is amazing. Nobody's ever told me to get the salesperson involved in the trade. And I mean, what are you talking? Huh? Okay, so tell him how to walk around a trade. And then I have another general manager chime in on the thing that said on the comments. Why would you do that? The customer already knows about all these things that are on their car. Yes, but you want him to know you know it. So that when you present the figure to him on his trade, he's not going to go, but that's too low. He knows you know what he knows, right? And the same thing goes with credit. I know you know what your score is. I know you were 30 days late before. I know you know that you have a 620 and the 620 is not exactly perfect. I know you know that, but you need to know I know it.
So that's when I get back to Palmer's software, right? Because he got all that bullshit out of the way right up front. Because that's what they did. They desk you the very first deal. See what you give me, run your credit. Okay, here are the cars that you qualify for.
Right.
Sure.
Let's go take a look. And he ranked ordered them from the top gross to the lowest gross. That makes all the sense in the world. The other way is a game.
LeaseLink did that. LeaseProfit did that.
Why wouldn't you?
But way back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, on leasing when the captives didn't own leasing and you could lease wherever. That process and John's process was ahead of its time.
It was,
yes.
But it was the right thing to do if you wanted to save guy time.
Right.
You didn't want to.
Here's what's amazing.
Wanted to help them.
They don't even. Promax doesn't even sell that anymore.
Don't.
They sell CRM.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, but it's okay. Yeah, it's just you look at it and you go, whatever, man. I get that part of it. I think that at the end of the day, Jason White is a good friend of mine. And he works at Champ, and he's been intimately involved in A to Z from the very beginning. I dare say a big part of it's his idea.
Yep.
Okay, and we've had some discussions as to whether or not this is a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea.
Do they make? They've had it compared. Do they make more money at the end of the day? They net out more.
They do, but I mean, this is a process they have put in hook, line, and sinker.
They put technology.
They're going to make it work.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Can the normal car dealer make this work? Probably, if you buy into it the same way Champ did. But if you can't buy in wholeheartedly, hook, line, and sinker the same way, and be willing to not just buy in, but every day train on it, every day move yourself towards this, because Champ didn't get there in 30 days. Yeah. They got there. It probably took. I bet it took more than 3 years to get to this point. But they were determined. This is how they believe car buying ought to be, and and we're going to make it this way. And then they built software around it, right?
Right. And that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
It makes a hell of a lot of sense. So they decided this is how they're going to work. The rest of the car world has not decided.
Well,
I think that's a good point.
And that gets back to these platforms, these big box platforms. They don't make them for individuals. They make them for the group.
Yes.
Right? And
One
you're
size
not
fits
going to, you can't do what you just described your friend does.
Yeah.
Because everybody's working off the same platform, and it doesn't allow.
They're selling A to Z now, and so if you're willing to go learn
Right.
A to Z, and you're willing to use that process and use that technology. Now, here's the thing. Once you commit down that road,
You can't go back.
yeah, there's no going back.
No.
Right?
Well, okay, so I know we're getting towards the tail of our time, but let's say we don't go A to Z. All right, customers are saying in just monster drones of amounts of reviews and comments coming back that this is not a great experience. How would you restructure the F&I office to create a better experience?
Well, I mean, if I was going to restructure the F&I experience at all, first of all, I'm not sure I would, but if I was, I would have the F&I manager come to them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay. So and I would.
So no
this is our
box.
business. This
Yeah.
is no box. No box. This is our business manager, and our business manager is going to go over your paperwork to get your titling right, to get all your paperwork right. Because this is what my salespeople would tell them when they brought them into my business office.
Yep.
You know, the business manager's job is to get all your paperwork right, to get all your loan paperwork right, to get all your title work right, to get the paperwork right. I don't do paperwork. I'm a sales guy. I don't do paperwork. Okay. He does the paperwork for the state to get everything straight. That's his job, and then he's going to go over your loan thing, and they would hand them off to me in a very professional way, and it was like they were sitting down with the bank, because I guarantee you, no matter what, if they don't finance with you, they're going to go down to the credit union and they're going to get in the box.
Yep.
Okay, so they're going to a box.
Yep.
Right. So they sit down with the banker. And the banker goes over the loan and does his thing with the loan, and you know, I mean, DocuPad's an amazing product. If you're not using DocuPad, you should look at it. It is an absolute,
do everything there.
Yeah,
Yep.
right, and it's an absolute amazing product. It actually works super well for the whole process of offering everything in the menu. You know, when menu pricing came, when menu came out, everybody in the world told you it was going to kill F&I profit. No, it didn't. Actually, made it go up because everything got offered
Jim
every time.
Ziegler, he was a huge believer.
In menu.
Menu.
Yeah, absolutely, because the menu made you to offer everything.
Yep.
Yeah, no matter what.
Whereas an F&I manager, I'd look at it and say, I don't really want to fight this guy on payments. So I'll stick this in here, and they'll get to their payment. I'm just going to take what I can get and go on.
Sure.
Here, the menu makes you offer everything, and I think that's this process of figuring out the right way for your store to do it. I'm going to tell you right now, I guarantee you, it's got nothing to do with the customer's experience with whether they like an F&I manager or like a box or don't like a box. It's got everything to do with how you manage it.
Sure.
If you decide that you want to make a process of having an F&I manager work and be a good experience, you will be able to train your salespeople
Agreed.
to make that a good experience.
Yep.
This is 100% in the dealer's court.
Right, and you said that what you just said a bit ago about your friend is they bought in. Right?
Yeah.
From the top.
From the
This is how
top down.
we're
I mean,
doing
it's just how we
Management
work
101.
here. Yeah, this is how we work here. Fish rots at the head. Dave Anderson. Dave, shout out to you, buddy. Yeah, 100% fish rots at the head. If you want the experience to be good, the experience will be good. If you just want the experience to be whatever the hell the new flavor of the month manager is, God love you. You got what you got. Because if you're not inspecting what you expect, if you're not out there inspecting what you expect that experience to be, you're going to get what you tolerate.
Well, I'm with you. And if I was just to add something to it, I mean, look, here's one thing that I think is reign true no matter what. Happy customers are typically your most profitable customers. I don't think anybody out there will fundamentally disagree with that thesis. Mm-hmm. So with that said, if your customers are telling you this is a shitty experience, then you need to be looking at how to make that better experience. Because I know from the many years I had, and I think anybody out in the industry will tell you the same thing, the happiest customers you ever had are the ones that you you made the most amount of money on,
Yeah.
and they were everything about it was just a great experience.
I'd say ask the question the right way, because I mean I don't know if they're just trying to get rid of an F&I manager, maybe so. I mean F&I manager saves a lot of expense.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
I can buy that, but ask the question the right way, and I think what you're going to find is even when I go to my bank to get a loan, the loan officer doesn't do the paperwork with me. He hands me off to his secretary to do the paperwork.
So because we travel in the car business, we eat a ton of restaurants, right? Always at a different. When the waitress or waiter started to bring the checkout to the table, right? The computer ran your car.
Yep.
I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to wait around, right?
Right.
I'm like, why?
Because
the
that's
hell?
usually when things always get messed up, right?
Yeah.
You're like, this has been a great experience, and all of a
Until
sudden
the
after
end.
the check, and they disappeared.
They go away and you never see them again, and you want to get the hell out of there. And when they have it on, I just love that. And so I'm assuming that meal maybe $100. This is tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
That maybe that same psychology works there as well, if you can do it. I mean,
there are computers on every desk now.
Right.
So doing the paperwork there or doing the sale there and then going and getting the paperwork and coming back to the customer.
Bringing the
do that.
iPad back to do the menu selling
do
is
the
actually
menu
very
selling
simple.
mess
there.
up the
You
environment.
can't do it with DocuPad. DocuPad is a freaking.
It's a table.
It's this size of an iPad.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. DocuPad's not going to help you there. Bob and I did argue about whether or not DocuPad should be on an iPad, and there's a lot of reasons why it can, a lot of reasons why it can't, and I think it's getting closer to can now than can't. But at the time, there were legitimate reasons why it couldn't be there. But at the end of the day, that I think it's like anything else. If you go to the customer and you're in your processes set, and the business manager is set up the right way, and he sells the right way, and I mean, hey, look, man, I get it. If you're an old F&I guy, yeah.
So
you stuck them to the roof. I can't. I got to be honest with you. I've done it too, but we can't do that anymore. So if you're doing all this,
there's legislation coming that will actually force us
from
not to do
happening.
that.
It's going to be a bad thing. But but you can still sell, and I still think there's there's inherent value in a guy who can sell life, A&H, and a warranty. You can tell how old I am when I say A&H.
Yeah.
Nobody sells life, and accident, and health anymore.
No.
But when you sell warranty, gap, prepaid maintenance, these things that we sell today in F&I, that's a different sale, and I believe wholeheartedly that guy who learns that craft, sells that better than a guy who's just trying to sell the car.
So yesterday down at John's place, we met with
Todd,
and we met with Bill, both
right.
F&I guys.
Yeah.
Todd had been there 25 years, and Bill's probably been there close to 20. That experience is a totally different experience because when you show up there, everybody knows everybody, right?
Right.
And you don't feel like you're getting bounced around because
Everybody knows everybody.
everybody knows everybody.
Well, there's 25 people that live in your town.
Well, I mean,
yeah, okay.
but that was going back to what I was saying. Like, if
The
your customers are saying,
environment.
if the customers are saying it's not working, you need to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Look, guys, now we're towards the tail end of our time today, and this has been a fun conversation. You guys can see we don't always agree here on today's show
Because we don't script anything out.
'cause we
That's for
don't-
sure.
Yeah, that is right. We do not script
we
anything out.
didn't even know what the topic was until we started the podcast.
But I'd love to hear from everybody out there watching and listening. If you guys have watched this episode, do we really need an F&I box? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Drop it in the comments down below. And guys, one of the biggest compliments you can ever give us is to share the show. It means so much to us when you guys share the show. If you have a manager or a colleague or another employee of yours that needs to listen to today's conversation, share the show. It means a lot for us. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join.
Enjoy it, always do.
Always a good time. I do this for free.
This is good.
Well, you are. We obviously haven't got you in the box yet.
Come with me, sir.
All right, we're all going to take him to the box. For everybody out there watching and listening, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch or listen today.
Thanks for tuning in to the Old Guys Know Shit podcast with your host, Old Guys Who Know Shit. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.